So, as ever, we're going to start in the south because last week I told you that the main force that was in Rafah, the 162nd Division, is the division that moved up north to Jabalia. They left one brigade behind in Rafah to patrol the corridor, the Philadelphia corridor on the border with Egypt. And they are also working along the buffer zone. Maybe if we could do the zoom in map tomorrow, you can see the buffer zone sort of between Khan Yunis and Rafah is the area that Israelis have been operating on, looking for offensive tunnels that cross the border. And so our first operation is going to show that there was more than 10 operations in Rafah this week alone. So Rafah didn't they didn't get the memo that the Israeli military was recentering the battle, and the Rafah brigade continued the battle in the south, which is something that we're going to see. It's a theme we're going to see today. All the fighters stay in their positions. The Rafah brigade doesn't leave Rafah when the Israeli military leaves Rafah, just like the Jabalia brigade doesn't leave Jabalia. And that's why they're there the day the Israelis move from Rafah to Jabalia. The fighters aren't moving around. And when we get to Jabalia, we'll talk more about that. But the fighters remain in Rafah and are fighting fiercely the Israelis. There was 3 serious IED. There was 7 qualitative operations in Rafah, 3 IED operations, and 5 anti-tank operations, and killed 2 soldiers with anti-tank fire, several severely injured in Rafah. So continuing to take a toll on the flattened Rafah. The only success that the Israeli military has had in Rafah is to flatten the civilian buildings. And when they leave Rafah, and they left behind one brigade that's now under the control of the Gaza division. So that's the division that's responsible for the Gaza Strip, as Ali and Asa just described. And so they left that skeleton crew behind, and they got hit hard. And we're going to take a look at that. We'll look at number 1 here first. We'll show you pretty spectacularly one of those IEDs. This is a booby trap tunnel entrance. This is an engineering unit using Caterpillar front end loaders and bulldozers, and their bulldozer or their front end, the excavator pulls the tunnel entrance and detonates the explosives that were rigged on those tunnel entrances. You could see the 2 soldiers that were there behind. The Israelis said that he was a commander of the military engineering. He was a combat officer from the military engineering school who was killed, and another seriously injured in this operation from last week. We'll show it again. We'll loop it around again. This is the medical evacuation, and again, not firing on those medical evacuations. We're going to see that all through this show again. The Palestinians have the opportunity to do that and are choosing to not. So that's Caterpillar gear there. You can see the armored excavator, the armored bulldozer, wheeled bulldozer, not a D9. That's a wheeled bulldozer that you see in the back there. Peoria, Illinois on the BDS list. There's going to be a few BDS list targets in this resistance report. And it's just, I think, important to keep showing this resistance. The resistance of the civilians that Abu Bakr showed so eloquently and devastatingly today, the courage that the civilians are fighting as well with matches the fighters who, as they say, fight in the same trench as their people. And so this is an operation along the buffer zone. So this is you could say this is south of Khan Yunis, north of Rafah. It's in sort of the no man's land between that area. And just a qualitative operation. You could see it. They've got it on camera. No one can tell you because of the media ops embedded within the Qassam brigades and Saraya al-Quds primarily. Nobody can say that these operations didn't happen, and the Israeli military has to claim their casualties after operations like this, although they don't always, that they did in this case after this operation and a couple other operations that I'm going to show over the course of this show. And look at number 2 is also a qualitative operation. 12 months into the 13th month of this battle. And we're seeing Zuari drones here still being used. These were used on October 7th. I've done a couple pieces on them over the course of the last year. You can see there, they've got a 3D printed casing there for the camera that they've set up on it. So they're going to turn this drone into a first person view, an FPV. So it's going to take us along for the ride. Here we're seeing a recon position with 4 soldiers and 2 jeeps. And those guys up there on the top, they're the soldiers in a window version of how to handle a recon position, where you just stand up on your man-made mound so that everybody can see you're there. And they get target acquisition from this rocket assisted. You can see its launch there. It's a rocket assisted launch. And then 𝐤𝐿 has a number of cameras that follow. They get this one from the side. They're going to have one here where it flies over top. So they've got multiple camera angles of this. It's a pretty remarkable operation. And then here you see the tracking device. If you look below the crosshairs in the middle, when the soldiers appear over the hill, they've come down over the hill after indicating that they were on the hill. You're going to see the target acquisition crosshairs go. Maybe we can show that again, but you can you see it cuts out just before it lands. We don't get the result of it, but this is a 20-kilo explosive laden drone, and you can see the impact of the explosion sending smoke up higher than that mound that we can see from the other angle is a pretty massive mound. So we didn't get, it's difficult to match the exact casualties up all the time. Israel delays the release of these casualties and makes it difficult to do exact cross references of it. It did look a little bit like it was going to miss hitting directly. The video cuts out, but the shrapnel from the explosion, if you're just in the area of that going off, here you can see him setting the camera in a 3D casing, which is interesting. It's possible that this drone was assembled during the battle. We don't have confirmation. There's the soldiers in a window. You just stand up at the top of your berm so that every person in the Gaza Strip can see that you're there, and they pay the price for it. These guys pay the price for the stupidity. Tactical obliviousness, I guess. I don't know if that's a term, tactical obliviousness. They've been doing it all throughout the war. And so these were used on October 7th. I've talked about that in previous shows. Part of the blinding and breaching operation had diversionary fire. They fired more than 36 of these Zuari drones. They're named after Mohammed Zuari. He was the Tunisian founder of the drone program. He was assassinated by Israel, by Mossad in Tunisia in 2016. And there's a monument to the drones that he built and to him in Rafah. So this is the Rafah brigade hitting the Israeli military with a Zuari drone in the town that Zuari's monument is in and where his family was from. So just rich symbolism of that attack, and just another qualitative attack after people believed that all eyes were going to move to Jabalia. The Rafah brigades said, hold on a sec, we have a couple more operations. So I wanted to bring you that. Number 3 is 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜 released a mixtape, sniper mixtape here. And on the back wall, you see there, it's a Ziad Nakala quote. He's the leader. He's the founder of 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜, the armed wing of Islamic Jihad. And he gave that quote at a meeting. And it said, let us go to pray. Let us go to fight like we go to prayer. Sort of like duty fulfillment he talked about. And those fighters, we can loop it around one more time tomorrow so we show you that. So Nakale says that, let us go to fight like we go to prayer. And 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜 writes on the wall, we will go to fight as we go to prayer. Having a direct conversation with their leadership, something from years ago, and they put that up on the wall. They only show it for half a second. But it's such a meaningful line. It's obviously a significant line to, there you see it on the wall, to Islamic Jihad. And just, yeah, that's perfect. Thanks, Tamara. Just the communication is something that I've brought to you guys all through this war. The way that the fighters, the rank and file fighters, are communicating with their leaders, historic leaders, active leaders, placing themselves, positioning themselves within the historic trajectory of the national liberation struggle, and doing it just as simple as having a marker on the wall in their sniper position. So this is a sniper mixtape. I had to cut out all of the 15 sniper hits that you see in this video. You can go to my Twitter if you want to see the full video. But it's a remarkable collection of sniper attacks that we have shown all on the show, edited on the show throughout this year. And 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐿 on the October 7th anniversary a couple weeks ago, they said that they have carried out 50 sniper operations, and they released 2,000 military communiques to do that. So just wanted to bring you that one to connect the history and the significance of these fighters communicating with their leadership. I think that's a really important part that we have seen all throughout this war. And it's remarkable because it takes place in every corner of the battle. And those guys don't know that that video is being made. They just shoot it and it gets sent to the next level to figure out how it gets processed and published. So they're not putting that up there as that's in their own base. That's what their graffiti, their message to the world in their position is a significant one for Islamic Jihad and their leader. So that was Southern Gaza.